Day 12 was an early start and we rose at 5 a.m. Port Stanley is supposed to be one of the harder ports to actually access and is a tender port. You need both favourable wind and sea conditions to safely tender ashore, and thankfully we had both. And the ship was keen to get people ashore quickly so they could make the most of the favourable conditions.
We had booked the Lagoon Bluff NCL Excursion, and this was the only NCL excursion that we had booked for the whole cruise, thinking that they would prioritise those who'd booked excursions if they had to. But it didn't come to that, and soon after 7 a.m. the passengers were making the 30-minute trip ashore.
This was a beautiful harbour area, and once ashore we waited patiently to board our minibus, whilst a sea lion watched on from the jetty.
We boarded our minibus, which was driven by Len. Yeah, you know Len. Well, everybody knows Len, don't they? And unsurprisingly, with only 3,500 inhabitants on the whole island, pretty much everybody there does. It's impossible to escape the impact of the 1982 conflict between Britain and Argentina when visiting here, and Len was just like every other local we spoke to that day, proudly British and grateful for the sacrifices made by British soldiers to liberate the islands all those years ago. And as we drove past the mountains of Harriet and Tumbledown, due respects were paid. And our destination was Bluff Cove, again the scene of a terrible loss of life in the 1982 conflict. But then and now it is also the nesting site for king penguins and Gentoo penguins, and is a prime tourist attraction on the islands.
After a briefing by park rangers and disinfecting our shoes, we were free to go and see these magnificent birds in their natural habitat, and this was an incredible experience, and we could get close enough to see how they interact and communicate. King penguins had recently hatched babies sat under their bellies, and you could just make them out. There were lots of chattering and posturing, as well as older chicks who were losing their brown fluffy coat, learning how to rely less on mum and dad. The Gentoo penguins also had their young. Some would simply sleep and laze about. Others were literally taking food from their parents' mouths, and others spent their time chasing each other, or chasing their parents, or falling over trying to do that.
This was some spectacle, and all whilst geese and turkey vultures circled round, with the latter looking to prey on the vulnerable young, and we spent a couple of hours just watching this spectacle and seeing the penguins head into the sea and others coming back out from a bit of fishing.
So we've got to Bluff Cove to see the penguins. There's Gentoo penguins and king penguins, and it's absolutely awesome because you can get so close. I'm absolutely loving this experience.
And these hours flew past even if the penguins couldn't. But the weather turned and a cold wind got up and the rain started.
But this is a normal day in the Falklands, and the Cabbage Café and adjoining gift shop in Bluff Cove provided refuge for visitors and a taste of home too, with Yorkshire tea served in fine bone china with scones and cakes too. This was complimentary with our NCL excursion and was absolutely lovely. And the smiling staff serving up these very British delights were also happy to pose for a picture too. Thank you, ladies. The setting of this place is breathtaking, but you can't help think of those who also suffered in this very place in our living memory too. Sobering.
Our time here ended and we boarded our bus back to Stanley, and it only seemed right to find a pub and raise a glass to all those affected by the conflict. And the Victory pub in Stanley was an appropriate place to do just that.
We're going to have fish and chips.
Yes, we are.
2 pints of rock hopper ale, please. Served at room temperature, of course. A proper British boozer this. Dartboard, jukebox and fish and chips. By heck, this is good. Cheers, chaps.
So we're in the Victory bar in Port Stanley, and it's nice to get a taste of home. Fish and chips, amazing. And a decent beer as well, rock hopper beer, brewed just over there. And it's really good ale. We met some lovely people here as well, and we really do rate this place. It's nice to have a beer for the boys as well, so cheers boys.
Cheers.
Yeah, and a really good day here in Stanley, and the penguins this morning at Bluff Cove, wow, absolutely wow, gotta be done.
And others from the ship also came in for that authentic British pub experience. Better have another then. Cheers! Okay, this is some day already.
Shall we go and explore the town? Oh look, we bought the British weather too.
So we just left the Victory bar and it's absolutely lashing it down. Welcome. UK weather, here we go.
So exploring the town in the rain was a dank affair, and we got rather wet, but we saw inside the Christchurch Cathedral, the world's most southerly Anglican cathedral.
We also walked to the Moving War Memorial with its adjacent bust of Margaret Thatcher. Is the weather improving, guys?
It's absolutely lashing it down.
This didn't stop us exploring the pretty seafront area, and we marvelled at the names of the ships assigned to be guardians of this place that are inscribed on the opposite hillside.
Then visited the excellent museum in the historic dockyard area. This was a really cool museum with some incredible exhibits and really worth the time of anyone visiting Stanley.
Gift shops and supermarkets lured us in, and guess who bought some British sweets and chocolate bars?
Si is after all so predictable.
What are you saying?
Is the weather improving now, guys?
Well, the sun's out and we've had a nice walk around Stanley. We've been in an amazing museum, been in the cathedral, we went down to the memorial, the War Memorial, really tastefully done, and in the museum as well. I'm going to wander back to the tender now, see what that looks like about getting back onto the ship. But a great...
We need to dry off as well, don't we?
Got a bit soggy. Great day here in Stanley.
There were big queues forming for the tender back to the ship, so we walked on a bit more, just to wait and see if the queue shortened.
It did exactly the opposite, so we joined the line.
Our tender back to the ship was a little rockier than coming ashore, but we were soon back on board and in need of some dry clothing.
We were soon leaving this wonderful place, and the sun was well and truly shining again. After changing, we grabbed a meal in the buffet and headed to the theatre, where the Dreams duo put on a show filled with mesmerising aerial performances. This couple were incredibly talented, and even Si agreed that this was a good show. The rough seas must be getting to him.
Okay, but maybe it was the cocktails. What did they come after? But the ship felt quiet after what had been a long and tiring day ashore in Stanley. Or was there an illness on board that was afflicting the passengers? We'd certainly noticed more and more people coughing and spluttering. Well, one more before bed it is. For medicinal purposes, of course.
Day 13, with yet another sea day ahead, and a bit of a thick head, we enjoyed a lie-in.
A late breakfast it is then, and we were sailing north into warmer climes, but whilst it was sunny, it was still very, very windy and not quite warm enough for a sunbathe in t-shirt and shorts.
A bit more reading before lunch, followed by another bracing walk on the promenade deck.
It definitely is. It's blowing a right old hoolie up here. Hold to your hat.
YouTube gold. Trying out with you.
So Nettie did hold on to her hat after that, and it was good to get those steps in and try and burn off at least a few of the calories we seem to be continually consuming. And of course, after that walk, we needed ice cream. So how is it, Nettie?
Right, 5 out of 5. It's absolutely delicious. I've gone for rum and raisin, and lots of flavour to it. The funny thing is though, because it's so windy, there's these like little crispy things that you can put on the top, as well as hundreds and thousands. Got a nice scoop of the crispy things, and whoosh, they flew out of the spoon. So I've only managed to get a few of those on. But
To battle the wind today.
it definitely is. Delicious though.
So, Si, has there been another issue on the ship?
So one of the features of today has been that a small group of passengers have been lobbying fellow passengers to get them to sign a petition to complain against Norwegian Cruise Line for the missed ports. Now, before we sailed, a couple of months before we sailed, they cancelled Punta Arenas in the Chilean fjords, which was one of the highlights of the cruise. And it was within the sort of the terms where we would forfeit some of our cruise fare if we decided not to sail. And then obviously we've had the cancelled port at Elephant Island due to the storm and the bad weather that we were facing down there. And this group of passengers have been going around trying to get people to sign their signature. They claim they got over 500 signatories, but there was certainly a good crowd of people down at reception this morning, all complaining about the missed ports and stuff. From our perspective, we do feel the Chilean fjords was a real disappointment, that being cancelled. We thought the $50 compensation for that was pretty miserly by NCL, but the Elephant Island stop was completely understandable, and we were very grateful that they cancelled that stop because of the storm. On the storm charts looked absolutely horrendous, and I'm really glad that the captain sort of prioritised our safety. Not sure whether this petition is going to achieve anything, but it's certainly been a feature today, and there's been some unhappy NCL passengers going around the ship today, sort of really vocally complaining about what's been going on. Anyway, if we get any more updates, we'll let you know.
Anyway, back to some fun, and this time it was educational too, and we took the opportunity to brush up on our abysmal Spanish. Lo siento, por favor, mi español no es bueno. Hopefully that'll help a bit. And we then had to collect our passports after our visit to the Falklands, before heading to the next port talk on Puerto Madryn. We had made no plans for this stop whatsoever, so this session was extremely helpful.
So I was allowed to select the venue for tonight's entertainment, and of course he went and dragged us to the whiskey bar, where they were showing Premier League football.
So after making me watch singing, dancing shows all week, it's my turn because there's football on. All blah blah blah, as our good friend Ali would call it. Thanks, Ali. So it's just time in the proof bar. Premier League's on. Spurs Arsenal. Actually, fancy Spurs winning this one. Sneaker surprise. Let's hope you do.
It was Spurs v Arsenal, and to be honest, it had just as much theatrics as those shows you dragged me to.
Then a meal before heading to our favourite mojito bar.
Hang on, I thought Gatsby's was our favourite bar. Can we have joint favourites?
Suppose we better keep trying them both in case one is actually better. You're retiring to bed early, guys. Everything okay?
Well, a little bit of a change of plan for tomorrow. Not that we had any plans for tomorrow in Puerto Mandin, but apparently because of a medical emergency, we're getting into port very early so that they could offload the person to the nearest hospital. We wish them well and hope they recover soon and speedily. But apparently we're able to get off the ship at 6 a.m. in the morning. So what that means is we haven't got long there anyway, because we'll be back aboard at 3:30. And we weren't supposed to get off the ship till sort of 7:30 or something like that. So we've got an extra hour and a half ashore. So we're going to get an early night tonight and try and get off the ship as early as we can in the morning to make the most of our time in Puerto Mandin.
So tomorrow we would set foot back in Argentina and hopefully be back in warmer climes.
But we wondered how Argentinian Puerto Madryn would be, and whether we would be saying Borodar more than Buen dia.
If you like what we do and you want to see more of our ventures, please like and subscribe. Cheers!